Close your eyes and imagine this. It's midnight. Soldiers stand watch on the front lines, missiles rest in their silos, and fleets of warships patrol the oceans. But suddenly, every gun jams. Every missile refuses to launch. Every nuclear warhead becomes nothing more than a lump of metal. By sunrise, the armies of the world realize the truth. Every weapon on Earth has stopped working overnight. What happens next? What if, in an instant, war itself became impossible? In our real world, human history has been shaped by weapons. From the first sharpened stone to the sword, the musket, the tank, and finally the nuclear bomb, technology has always decided who conquers and who falls. Weapons are not just tools of destruction. They've built empires, toppled kings, and created the fragile balance of power that keeps nations in check. But what if this ancient truth was broken? What if, one morning, the world woke up in a reality where every weapon simply stopped working forever? Now imagine this. It's not just a malfunction. Not a hack, not sabotage. Every weapon, modern or ancient, has lost its power. Guns cannot fire. Missiles cannot detonate. Tanks will not move. Even bows and arrows snap in uselessness, their strings refusing to release. The world has crossed a line into the unthinkable. The first hours are pure chaos. Soldiers on patrol pull their triggers, and nothing happens. Air forces scramble jets, but missiles won't lock, bombs won't drop. Navies prepare for conflict, but their cannons and torpedoes are silent. Across the globe, militaries fall into confusion. Commanders bark orders that cannot be carried out. Nations that rely on firepower suddenly find themselves disarmed. But there's something even more terrifying. The power vacuum. If guns and nukes no longer work, who truly holds the power? And on the streets, ordinary people wonder, does this mean peace? Or does it mean lawless chaos? Because if weapons are gone, fists, fire, and fear remain. But this was only the beginning. The shockwaves ripple through nations. The United States, with its massive nuclear arsenal, suddenly loses its most powerful deterrent. Russia and China, too, find their weapons useless. Small nations that once lived in fear of superpowers suddenly breathe easier. Without the threat of invasion, borders mean less, and diplomacy changes overnight. But not everyone is celebrating. Countries in active conflicts, Ukraine, Israel, the Middle East, and Africa, suddenly find their wars frozen. Armies face each other across trenches, powerless to fight. Imagine soldiers staring across battlefields, no longer warriors, but just men with uniforms and empty hands. And yet, the absence of weapons doesn't end conflict, it transforms it. Leaders desperate for power begin searching for other ways to dominate. Propaganda, technology, cyber warfare, even starvation as a weapon. Because one truth remains, human ambition doesn't disappear when the guns go silent. Now the entire world is forced into a new age. The United Nations gathers, not to prevent war, but to manage a planet where traditional war is no longer possible. Nuclear powers collapse in influence. Countries that relied on diplomacy rather than military might suddenly rise. But the danger isn't over. Without weapons, nations begin racing for alternatives. Science labs search desperately for loopholes. Sonic technology, drones that incapacitate, and psychological weapons. Even basic tools like fire and chemicals could return as deadly instruments of control. And then comes the question of policing. If no police officer can use a gun, how do cities maintain order? If no military can defend a border, how do nations survive? Suddenly, crime networks and warlords who can exploit fear, numbers, and brutality gain an advantage. A world without weapons doesn't mean peace. It may mean a return to primitive violence, where strength and cunning rule. But what about the long term? Decades pass in this strange new reality. Without weapons of war, humanity adapts. Nations pour resources into science, space, and medicine instead of armies. Wars between states become impossible, but political struggles shift into new arenas. Cyber conflicts, economic dominance, and control of resources like water and energy. The balance of power tilts toward nations with brains rather than bombs. Countries leading in AI, biotech, and robotics become the new superpowers. Religion and culture, once divided by centuries of warfare, find new ground for unity, but also new sparks for rivalry. Without the ability to wage war, some conflicts fester unresolved, locked in stalemates of hatred that can never explode, but never heal. And yet, imagine a child born into this future. A future where no one fears bombs dropping or missiles flying, where the nightmare of nuclear war is a ghost from the past. But here's the haunting question. Would humanity truly learn peace? Or would it invent new horrors beyond weapons just to keep fighting? The silence of battlefields was only the beginning. Because the true story of this world is not the end of war. It's the reinvention of it. Imagine wars fought not with guns, but with viruses. Not with tanks, but with algorithms. Not with bombs, but with ideas. In a world without weapons, the greatest weapon may be the human mind. Short sentences, visual storytelling. You can see it. Empty battlefields, silent cities, soldiers staring at broken rifles. World leaders are panicking, scientists racing, civilians hoping. A planet caught between the dream of peace and the nightmare of chaos. So, what if all weapons stopped working overnight? Would it be the dawn of a golden age of peace? Or the birth of a darker era, where humanity proves that even without weapons, we'll always find new ways to fight? The answer may depend not on the weapons we hold, but on the hearts that wield them.